Am I the a-hole for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece but to my wife as a gift? Am I the a-hole for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece but to my wife as a gift? It's not a dollhouse, but I didn't want anyone to think I was being misleading on purpose by saying I built a house. I, 28M, made my wife, 28Fef, a replica of a house that's known to fans of a musician, but wouldn't mean much to others. It's about 2 feet tall and wasn't very complicated to build, but my wife had said a few times over last year that she thought it would be cool to have for little trinkets. She's like a crow with her trinkets. I love it. She didn't know I was making it for her, but I did sneakily involve her in its creation through having her make a couple TikToks when we were out together so I could get the colors right. She has no idea, lol. I was excited, so I showed a picture to my brother. He told me it was cool but didn't get the purpose. He showed it to my niece Ava, 13F, who knew what it was and said she wanted one too. My brother asked if I would give it to Ava for her birthday. I said no, it's for my wife, but I could make one with Ava. It would help teach her some basic woodworking skills which they don't do in schools here anymore. I'd like that. Brother said if it was so easy, then I could make a second one for my wife and just give this one to Ava since her B-day is the end of the month. Again, I said no. This was done specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then came back to me and said, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I told him it's not a dollhouse, just a fancy shelf. He argued that makes it worse, because Ava would actually play with it. He must have gone to complain to Mom about it. He is the younger brother, because Mom called me to tell me that it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. I tried to explain that it's not a dollhouse, but she just kept saying, "That's stupid." This weekend I was at their house and Ava kept bringing up the house and laying it on thick with statements like, "I've always wanted one just like it." She kept asking why my wife wanted a dollhouse. I said it's not a dollhouse, but she kept asking why she needed a dollhouse. I told my brother that he was encouraging his kid to be manipulative, and I really didn't like it, so I was going to leave. He told me that I was dangling the house over her head like McDonald's and teasing her, and that it made me a bad uncle. Being a good uncle is important to me, and I do feel for the girl because she's a big fan too. I admit I have a blind spot for this because I don't have kids, and maybe I shouldn't have shared the picture with my brother to begin with. Am I really the asshole for not just giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make, and I could make another quickly. Sorry, guys. Ava isn't my brother's biological daughter. There's a long story involved that I didn't want to add, but I should have realized the age would be surprising. I still see her as my niece regardless, but I get why that would be alarming. Nothing bad happened or anything.
Am I the a-hole for hiding my expensive shampoo and conditioner from my friend's guest? I, 28F, share an apartment with my friend, 34M. Last weekend, while we were away, he invited his female friend, Sarah, to stay over. When we got back, I noticed she had used most of my shampoo and conditioner without asking. I had splurged on these expensive products to treat myself. I also make a lot less money than my friend. Today, Sarah came over again for a visit and asked to shower at ours before heading to a dance class. However, I had taken my expensive products to my room this time, leaving only my friend's basic shampoo out for her to use. When she couldn't find the conditioner, she asked my friend, who came to my room to ask me about it. I told him that she's his guest, and it's not my responsibility to provide spa products for her. My friend got mad and thinks I'm rude and petty. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for gossiping with my mom about my brother's fiancé is potentially lying about giving birth? Asshole. I, 22F, have an older brother, John, 32M, who has been with his fiancée, Jane, 30F, for 4 years. They have a 4-month-old. Jane found out she was pregnant at 5.5 weeks and immediately called my mom to tell her. Mom was confused but still very excited. Jane said she was going to tell John when he got back from his work trip. A few hours later, she called again, sobbing, saying she has insatiable cravings. Mom made a joke like, "Isn't it a bit early for cravings?" And Jane went off on her. She started yelling about how this was her pregnancy and no one else's. It was an odd reaction. She also apologized for her outburst by blaming it on hormones. When my brother returned from his trip, him and Jane left to stay at her mother's, and we didn't see her until after the baby was born. John said this was because Jane was afraid of losing the pregnancy and wanted to be with her mom, and we needed to respect boundaries. Whenever someone would ask about Jane or the baby, they would shut it down with vague answers like, every pregnancy is different, or she's carrying small, which isn't unusual. They barely shared anything about the pregnancy. No ultrasound pictures, no baby shower, and Jane didn't want anyone around during the delivery. I also discovered that every craving she listed came from one article about pregnancy cravings. She even listed multiple items in the same order as the article. When the baby was born, we were finally allowed to see Jane and John. And baby, of course. It was very bittersweet as we all wished we could have been there for Jane to help out. But Jane and John both reassured us that we did help out by staying away during the pregnancy. The weirdest part, though, is how Jane describes the birth. She claims she had an epidural via IV drip into her hand. Edited BC, I didn't elaborate. Which is not how those are administered. When I asked clarifying questions, thinking she had gotten confused, which is understandable, she shut down and refused to answer, like how she would during the pregnancy. She said the baby had latching issues because he was born with no umbilical cord stump. This can technically happen, but it's a rare and fatal medical condition that their baby does not have. The final straw was when she told us that the baby basically fell out of her within an hour of being in labor, despite my brother telling us how hard the birth was, and even stating that was why they weren't going to try for any more kids. Mom is on the same side as me and has been noting this inconsistencies and inaccuracies, but doesn't know how to bring it up, and their reactions don't help. A few days ago, my brother texted Mom saying her doubt of Jane is disrespectful, and they both want full apologies from the both of us for bullying Jane about her pregnancy labor. I haven't made any outright accusations about it, nor have I said any of this to Jane. I've only asked questions when she brings the pregnancy up. Am I the a-hole for having doubts?
Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit my sister's kids for free anymore? Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit my sister's kids for free anymore? I, 28F, have been babysitting my sister's 35F, 3 kids, ages 4, 7, and 9, for years whenever she needs a break or has work commitments. I love my nieces and nephew, and I understand parenting is tough, but it's getting to a point where I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. At first it was occasional, but now it's almost every weekend and sometimes even during the week when they're sick and can't go to school. I work a full-time job, and my weekends are my only free time to relax or catch up on personal things. My sister, however, assumes I'm always available, often texting me last minute to drop them off for a few hours, that turn into entire days. Recently, I told her that I'd be happy to continue babysitting, but I'd like to be compensated, even if it's just a little bit to cover my time. She got really upset and said, family shouldn't charge family, and accused me of being selfish because I don't have kids and don't understand what it's like. I feel guilty because I know she's a single mom and struggling, but at the same time, I feel like my kindness is being taken for granted. Our parents think I should just help out because that's what sisters do, but I'm starting to feel resentful. Am I the a-hole for asking to be paid for babysitting?